Football Manager is widely regarded as a pretty complicated game to get your head around, and even players that have played the game for years don't quite know every single aspect and feature that there is within it. But today, we're going to try and give you 5 of those, focusing on 5 things that most people don't know about the game. If you happen to know 3 or 4 of these, then you are definitely playing too much Football Manager, like us here on the FMSCOUT channel. But let us know in the comments how many of these you knew, and hopefully you'll get some use out of it. Just quickly though, if you do get some use out of the video, we'd massively appreciate it if you could smash the like button, and if you like this kind of content, make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Doing all of that will give us a big boost in the YouTube algorithm, and please do let us know in the comments as well your tips that you know from Football Manager that most people don't. That way we might even be able to make a follow-up with your guys' suggestions. Now we're going to use my Liverpool save, which is a couple of seasons in here, as an example for today's video. This is part of a rebuild where I've imagined life without Klopp. If you want to check that out, you can find it on my channel, linked in the description. But for our first tip, it's something that might actually be useful for Liverpool in real life, with the likes of Salah and Van Dijk potentially leaving in a couple of years with their contracts getting towards the end. And it's when you want to replace a player and find someone that has a similar profile for your team. Let's take, for example, Diogo Jota. Let's imagine he was leaving Liverpool and we wanted to find a replacement. Now you might go out there and just look at strikers on your player search or wide players. You might even know the button of find similar players, which will pull through players with a similar skill set to Diogo Jota. Here we've been suggested Alan Medina and also Jonathan Rodriguez, but as you can see, these guys aren't fully scouted, and there's a good chance once they are, that they won't actually meet the criteria that we need for a replacement for Jota, which is apparently determination, acceleration, dribbling, finishing, heading technique, and first touch. A very hard player to try and replace. However, there is something we can do that will hopefully return some more results of players that might more accurately represent Jota in game. We can do this by going to recruitment focuses and then creating a new recruitment focus. A lot of the time people will go through, select left midfielder, striker, whatever you want to consider Jota as, set the potential ability, the current ability. What a lot of people don't see though is there's actually a button here that says replacement for. Now if we go ahead and select Diogo Jota in that category, maybe look for people under the age of 28, let's say, because Jota is around that age, hit confirm. Our scouts are then going to go ahead and try and find players that are similar to Jota. Obviously your results won't come instantaneously, but a lot of people don't know that that feature exists. Now our scouts are going to go out there and try and find the best they can someone that represents Jota. Even if we don't get an exact recommendation, we might get some near matches, and you can go through, and maybe if Jota's leaving next week, you can set it to top priority to get them going on that a little bit further, and hopefully you'll get some good results. So if you didn't know, you can actually search for an exact replacement for a player by doing that. Now for the second thing that you might not know that you can do in Football Manager, and this one is really beneficial, particularly if you've got a lot of different profiles of players in your team and you're not very stuck in a way about how your tactic is going to be in game. For example, we're playing a 4-3-3 here with Liverpool. We've got an inside forward on the right on the attack duty and an inverted winger on the left on support. If we look at Michael Elise in this position though, you'll see inside forward might not necessarily be his best role, and actually inverted winger or an out-and-out winger might potentially be better for him. So we're going to bear that in mind. However, when we put someone else in that right position, let's take for example Dominic Szoboszlai here, when we go to him as a player and look at his best attributes on the right, he seems to suit potentially an advanced playmaker or a winger or an inside forward. Now a lot of you guys will be like me, and when you run your tactics, you kind of just want to force whatever player is in there to play that role because you want that role in your tactical setup. However, if you're not too specific about your tactic and you want your players to have a little bit more freedom playing in their best roles, what you can do is go to the position in question. You can then select personalized, and what you can then do here, you can select instructions for that position that will only apply to this player. So we mentioned earlier Szoboszlai here is a much better advanced playmaker on the right hand side, so we can go and do exactly that. We've set him as an advanced playmaker on the attack. I'm not saying this would work tactically, but you can then go through and say, well, maybe I want Szoboszlai to tackle harder and mark tighter, but I don't want Michael Elise to do that. So now you can see when we've got Szoboszlai in the team, it is set to that advanced playmaker role, but if we go and bring in anyone else, say Harvey Elliott or maybe Michael Elise, you can see that it's switched back automatically to that inside forward on the attack duty. You can do that in all positions on the pitch. Let's imagine imagine Curtis Jones is a good box-to-box, but maybe when Endo comes on, we bring him on in the 80th minute, we want him to be a ball-winning midfielder, winning the balls, scooping the balls up. Well, you can do exactly that. Like I mentioned, you can stick Endo in there, you can click on him, you can then go to personalize, and you can select whatever instruction you want for him, whatever role that you want for him to play. Also, obviously we've got two ball-winning midfielders here, so that wouldn't really work in this example, but you get the idea of what I'm trying to convey. Now, the third thing that you might not know also is related to tactics. Now, a lot of people will look at this screen. If they go beyond that in the tactics screen, maybe they're looking at their penalty takers or their set piece takers, maybe even the opposition instructions for the team that you're playing against. But what a lot of people ignore is this section here that says player. Personally, this is something that I barely ever use, but a lot of people don't even know that it's in the game. And what you can do when you're greeted with this screen, it looks quite daunting. There's nothing really on it. If we select a specific position on the pitch, take this right hand side here, we can then see the instructions that he is given in that position. If he has personalized instructions, you can see it here. Also, you can switch between all the players that could play that position and maybe sort through your personalized instructions that way. But one thing that a lot of people don't know exists on this screen is just down here, swap positions with. What this is, if you haven't guessed already, is you are able during the game to have players swap positions. It's particularly useful for wide players, or maybe if you've got a midfield diamond and you want players to swap around in the roles to try and confuse the opposition. We can select for our right winger, in this case Jota, we can ask him to try and swap positions with our left winger. Therefore, in game, when we now run this tactic, you should see on occasion they will swap sides. It's particularly useful if you've got a fluid front line where players can play on either side. It's going to confuse the defence. Maybe on the right hand side, Jota's up against the fullback that he just can't get past. Maybe the fullback is quicker or stronger than him. On the other side might be Mbappe, let's say, and we ask them to switch over. Suddenly, Mbappe might have the pace on this defender and you might be able to get past the opposition. So you can see how this could provide some extra alternative tactical options for you. If you wanted to know how to switch players' positions, there you go, there is the answer. Feature number 4 that a lot of people don't know is something that's actually going to save you more than a lot of these other features that we've looked at will. You might have had it in your save where you sign a player to be an important player in his contract, let's say, or a regular starter, but then you realise across the course of a season or even a couple of seasons later, they're no longer good enough to be an important player. Maybe they're only good enough now to be a fringe player or a squad player. Now, you might have noticed every now and then you'll get an email from your assistant where they tell you exactly that. We don't think, let's say, Michael Elise is good enough to be an important player anymore. We suggest you make him a squad player. You can then click a tick, and what will then happen is Elise will either just accept it or he'll get annoyed about it. Obviously, you need to judge each individual situation. If you've got a player that's a key player, star player, and suddenly you make him a fringe player, that's obviously going to cause some issues. But if you've got a regular starter that you may be knocking down to a squad player, sometimes you can get away with it and it'll prevent that player from getting upset later down the line. But most people have to wait for that email to come through to be able to do that. But did you know it's in a really weird section, but if you go to a player's overview and then you go to happiness, you can then actually change their agreed playing time in this screen right here. We can see we agreed to play Michael Elise as a squad player. He's now getting annoyed because he's not getting those minutes. His actual game time is that of a player who is surplus to requirements, and his expectations in the next 5 matches is to at least be an emergency backup for the team. Now, what we could do here to try and lower his expectations a little bit is instead of saying, Elise, you are a squad player, we could try and change this down to fringe player. You do get an idea here, as you can see, that might upset Elise as a player, but if we go 1 down to impact sub, we're not getting that anymore. So we could change his playing time to impact sub. He's going to expect less minutes, and if we go all the way to the top of our emails here, you'll see nothing has actually came through about Elise getting upset. On the same note, we've got Konate here, but we've also got a lot of great centre-backs who are considered regular starters. Konate, though, has got the agreed playing time of important player. Maybe we want to try and knock that down ahead of next season to try and get him to allow us to, play him a little bit less without him getting upset. So we can try it again here. If we go down to change and then regular starter, again, I think we've got away with it. There's nothing from the agent saying he'd be upset with this. Of course, when Konate agreed to be an important player, that was a few years ago. Things have changed now. And just to prove to you, I've now advanced a day, I've advanced a few minutes, and we've got nothing come through about Konate being upset or Elise being upset. And we've easily been able there to reduce their expected playing time, which is going to lead to them getting upset less regularly, which is very handy in keeping your dynamics high in game. Now, for the final thing you might not know, it's something that I brought up in a video video during FM23, and a lot of people were blown away by it, so I want to mention it here again. If I remember right, it was a long time ago, but I found this out from an FM dupe video. I just want to give him credit first because he was the one that I found this out off of. I'm not sure where he got the information, but this is something that can come in really handy for you and your team. Now, this can be done during match day, and what this tip entails is when you're playing a match and you have got, say, your 5 allotted substitutes. In this case, it's as a friendly, so we've got 11, but let's imagine it's a Premier League game and we've got our 5 subs and we use them. Let's go ahead and do that. There you go. I've just done some completely bonkers substitutions just to get players off the pitch. We've used all of our allocated subs that we're allowed. In this friendly, we have got everyone on the bench, basically. We've used all of those subs, but maybe you're in a situation where it's a Premier League game, you're 5-0 up, and you've got a big game against Manchester City coming up, or a Champions League final coming up in a few days' time, and you've got a player, let's say Gravenberch here, that we really want to protect. Maybe he's one booking away from a suspension, maybe he's not doing well for fitness, and we want to retain his fitness, and this game's already won, but we can't sub him off now because we've used all of our substitutions. Well, did you know you can actually manually take him off the pitch as if he's been injured? Yes, you will go down to 10 men, but in some situations this can be really handy in protecting a player. If, like I say, you've got a big lead against an opposition that you don't expect to lose to, maybe it's the 80th minute, what you can do is you can right click on a player, go down and then take off. Now, you can't do this for multiple players in one go. What you actually have to do is confirm the changes, let that play out. In this case, we've got a highlight, so we need this to run through before we can have that change take place, so let's just wait for that. Gravenberch does get the shot off before he goes. Now you can see he has been pulled off, so Gravenberch is gone. We're down to 10 men. Maybe you want to protect Elise 5 minutes later. We can now take him off as well, confirm change. You get the idea. We'll now be knocked down to 9 men, and obviously you don't want to do too much of that, else suddenly you might end up conceding, but it's a very simple thing you can do that a lot of people don't know exists, where you can just take a player off, stop them getting suspended, whatever it might be. It could really help you guys out in your saves. So there we go. That is the end of today's video. Hopefully you have found this useful. 5 things that I reckon you don't know about Football Manager. Let me know how many of these you did know in the comments down below. If you knew 4 or 5, then hands up to you. You're a Football Manager god. Don't forget to like the video if you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time, guys. Thank you and goodbye.